Many people are taught that if they are kind enough, patient enough, generous enough, and forgiving enough, the world will naturally reward them with love and respect. It is one of the oldest illusions ever created. In reality, human nature rarely works that way. People often admire kindness, but they respond to power. They appreciate generosity, but they respect boundaries. When kindness exists without strength, it slowly transforms from a virtue into permission. Permission for others to interrupt your peace, ignore your needs, and place themselves above you. Kindness is one of the most admirable qualities a person can possess, but when it exists without boundaries, it often produces the opposite of what people expect. Many believe that being endlessly generous, forgiving, and accommodating will naturally earn loyalty and respect. Human nature, however, does not always reward unlimited generosity. Instead, it often adapts to it. The moment people realize there are no consequences for taking more from you than they give back, they begin to treat your kindness as an unlimited resource rather than a meaningful gift. What was once appreciated slowly becomes expected. The favors that once earned gratitude become obligations in their minds, and your willingness to help is no longer seen as a strength, but as something they are entitled to receive. This transformation happens quietly because people instinctively adjust to whatever behavior is consistently available. When you never say no, others stop asking whether they should make another request. They simply assume the answer will always be yes. Over time, your own needs disappear beneath the expectations of everyone around you. You become known as the person who always sacrifices, always forgives, and always gives another chance. Ironically, this endless generosity can reduce the value others place on your time, attention, and energy. People naturally respect what appears limited, disciplined, and protected. When there are no visible boundaries, there is little reason for others to appreciate the effort behind your kindness. Instead of inspiring admiration, it can invite exploitation from those who prioritize their own interests above yours. This does not mean kindness is a weakness. The weakness lies in believing that kindness alone is enough to protect your dignity. Genuine strength comes from combining compassion with self-respect. A person who knows when to give and when to refuse sends a powerful message that their generosity is a conscious choice rather than an automatic response. Boundaries remind others that your kindness has value because it is offered freely, not demanded endlessly. Without those boundaries, kindness gradually loses its meaning and becomes an open invitation for others to take more than they deserve. People rarely value what they can possess without effort or limitation. This principle extends far beyond material possessions and quietly shapes the way human relationships develop. When your attention, time, and emotional support are always available without conditions, people gradually stop recognizing them as valuable. Instead of appreciating your presence, they begin to expect it. The human mind naturally adapts to consistency, and what is constantly available often fades into the background. This is why individuals who constantly seek approval by giving more of themselves frequently discover that their generosity is met with indifference rather than gratitude. The issue is not that kindness lacks value, but that unlimited access removes the sense of significance attached to it. Human nature is drawn toward what requires effort, discipline, and patience. We tend to protect what feels rare and overlook what appears endless. This psychological pattern explains why people often show greater respect toward those who carefully manage their time and energy than toward those who never refuse a request. Selective generosity communicates confidence because it reveals that your resources are valuable enough to protect. Endless availability, on the other hand, can unintentionally suggest that your own priorities are less important than everyone else's. People unconsciously observe how you treat yourself before deciding how they will treat you. If you constantly interrupt your own plans, ignore your own needs, and sacrifice your peace whenever someone calls, they begin to assume that your life revolves around serving theirs. This perception slowly alters the balance of respect. The more you prove that your time has no limits, the less valuable it appears. Those who understand human behavior recognize that distance, patience, and thoughtful restraint often increase appreciation far more than constant presence. This does not require becoming cold, distant, or selfish. It simply requires understanding that every meaningful relationship benefits from mutual respect rather than unlimited access. When your kindness is offered with intention instead of habit, people recognize it as a privilege instead of an expectation. They become more aware of the effort behind your generosity because they know it is not guaranteed. Your willingness to help becomes a reflection of your character rather than evidence that your boundaries do not exist, and that quiet sense of discipline naturally inspires greater respect than endless availability ever could. Being constantly available may seem like a sign of loyalty, generosity, or dependability, but in the language of human psychology, it often sends a very different message. When people know they can reach you at any moment, ask for your help without hesitation, or expect an immediate response, regardless of your own priorities, they slowly begin to see your attention as something ordinary instead of valuable. Availability, when it has no limits, loses its impact because people naturally adapt to what is always present. What was once appreciated becomes routine, and what becomes routine is rarely respected. This is why individuals who constantly place themselves at everyone else's disposal often find that their efforts receive less gratitude over time, not more. The issue is not that helping others is wrong, but that endless accessibility quietly weakens the perception of your importance. Every person has a limited amount of time, energy, and emotional capacity. When you give these resources away without protecting them, you communicate that they require little consideration. People unconsciously measure value by observing what someone protects. Those who confidently prioritize their responsibilities, maintain healthy boundaries, and occasionally say no demonstrate that their attention is earned rather than automatically granted. This creates a subtle sense of respect because it signals discipline and self-control. In contrast, someone who abandons their own plans whenever another person makes a request unintentionally teaches others that their own commitments carry little weight. Over time, this imbalance changes the dynamics of the relationship. Instead of seeing you as someone whose presence is meaningful, people begin to assume your availability is permanent. They stop asking if you have time because they believe your answer will always be yes. This expectation slowly erodes appreciation and replaces it with entitlement. Maintaining boundaries does not mean becoming distant or uncaring. It means recognizing that your attention has value and should be shared with purpose rather than obligation. When your presence is intentional instead of constant, people become more aware of its significance. They recognize that your willingness to invest your time is a choice, not a guarantee, and that awareness naturally strengthens the respect they have for you while preserving your own sense of balance and personal authority. Many people spend years believing that respect is something they earn by pleasing others, avoiding conflict, and making endless sacrifices, but true respect is built on a completely different foundation. It begins with self-discipline, the quiet ability to remain loyal to your own principles even when doing so disappoints someone else. A person who constantly abandons their values to keep others comfortable may be liked for their generosity, but they are rarely admired for their strength. Human nature instinctively recognizes discipline because it reflects inner stability. When someone consistently honors their commitments, protects their time, and refuses to compromise their dignity for temporary approval, they communicate a level of confidence that words alone can never express. This is why disciplined individuals often command respect without demanding it. Their actions reveal that they are guided by purpose rather than emotion. Endless sacrifice, on the other hand, can slowly undermine the way others perceive you. If you repeatedly ignore your own needs to satisfy everyone else's expectations, people begin to assume that your priorities matter less than theirs. They may appreciate your efforts, but appreciation is not the same as respect. Respect grows when people understand that your kindness exists alongside standards that cannot be manipulated. Self-discipline gives your generosity direction. It allows you to help without losing yourself, to support others without abandoning your own responsibilities, and to remain compassionate without becoming easily controlled. Every time you say no to something that conflicts with your values, you strengthen your identity. Every time you resist the urge to seek approval at the expense of your own well-being, you reinforce the message that your self-respect is not negotiable. This quiet consistency influences how others respond to you. They learn that your decisions are based on principle rather than pressure, making your words carry greater weight. People naturally trust those who demonstrate control over themselves because self-control suggests reliability, confidence, and emotional maturity. In contrast, someone who is driven entirely by the desire to satisfy others often appears uncertain and easily influenced. Discipline is not about becoming rigid or distant. It is about developing the strength to remain true to yourself while treating others with fairness. That balance creates lasting respect because it shows that your kindness is supported by character rather than by the fear of losing acceptance. One of the most misunderstood principles of human behavior is that absence often increases appreciation more effectively than constant presence. When you are always available, always responding immediately, and always offering your time and attention without hesitation, people gradually stop noticing the value of what you provide. Your presence becomes part of the background of their lives, something expected rather than appreciated. Strategic distance changes this dynamic because it interrupts familiarity and allows others to recognize what they may have been taking for granted. This does not mean ignoring people, playing emotional games, or withdrawing affection to gain control. It means understanding that healthy distance creates space for respect to grow. Every meaningful relationship benefits from moments where each person maintains their own identity, priorities, and independence. When your life is filled with personal goals, meaningful work, and interests beyond pleasing others, your attention becomes more valuable because it is shared intentionally instead of automatically. People instinctively recognize when someone has options, purpose, and self-direction. That quiet independence often commands more respect than endless availability ever could. Strategic distance also protects your emotional energy by preventing relationships from becoming one-sided. It gives you the opportunity to observe who values your presence and who simply values your usefulness. Some people only notice your importance when your constant support is no longer available. Their reaction reveals whether they appreciated you as a person or merely benefited from your willingness to give. This awareness helps you invest your time in relationships built on mutual respect instead of silent expectation. Maintaining distance when necessary also demonstrates emotional maturity. It shows that you are capable of choosing peace over unnecessary conflict and reflection over impulsive reactions. Rather than chasing validation or forcing others to recognize your worth, you allow your absence to speak for itself. Human psychology often assigns greater value to what cannot be accessed at any moment, and this principle applies to attention, time, and emotional investment just as much as it does to material things. By protecting your availability instead of offering it without limits, you encourage others to appreciate your presence with greater sincerity. Your kindness becomes a deliberate gift rather than an endless supply, and your relationships become healthier because they are built on balance, choice, and genuine respect instead of habit and dependence. Many people believe kindness means always saying yes, avoiding disagreement, and placing the needs of others above their own, but that version of kindness is often rooted in fear rather than genuine compassion. Fear of rejection, fear of conflict, fear of disappointing others, or fear of being misunderstood can disguise self as generosity. When kindness is motivated by the need for approval, it loses its authenticity because every act of giving is quietly driven by the hope of receiving acceptance in return. True kindness comes from a position of inner strength where your decisions are guided by principle instead of pressure. A strong person can offer forgiveness without forgetting their self-respect, extend compassion without allowing repeated mistreatment, and help others without sacrificing their own emotional well-being. This balance is what separates genuine kindness from people-pleasing. Strength allows you to choose when to give, while fear convinces you that you have no choice at all. Human nature instinctively recognizes this difference. People are more likely to respect someone whose kindness is deliberate and confident than someone whose kindness appears automatic and limitless. When you know your worth, you no longer feel compelled to earn validation through endless sacrifice. You understand that being a good person does not require tolerating disrespect or abandoning healthy boundaries. Instead, your kindness becomes an expression of character rather than a strategy for gaining approval. This confidence also makes your generosity more meaningful because it is freely offered, not emotionally negotiated. You help because you want to, not because you are afraid of what might happen if you refuse. There is a quiet power in knowing that you can walk away from relationships that repeatedly ignore your value while still wishing the other person well. That ability reflects emotional resilience, not bitterness. It demonstrates that your compassion is supported by wisdom and self-control. Strong kindness is calm, patient, and generous, yet it refuses to become a tool for manipulation. It understands that protecting your peace is not selfish but necessary for maintaining your ability to care for others in a healthy way. When your kindness is grounded in confidence instead of insecurity, people recognize that it is a gift, not an obligation, and they are far more likely to respond with genuine respect rather than quiet entitlement.